Hey guys, welcome to another episode of POD420. Today is January 14th, 2019, and we have some articles to talk to you about today. I am Jenna, and this is my co host.
Jimmy.
And so I guess we'll just jump right in. So, this first article, a game changing marijuana bill in Oregon is set to challenge federal law. Is this the next logical step in the cannabis legalization process?
hmm
So, Canada just recently completely legalized marijuana recreationally, right?
hmm
On a federal level.
Yep.
And
Countrywide.
that's
Well,
amazing.
some provinces um, decided not to do it, I think. But yeah, federally, on the federal level, they're all good about it. So yeah,
So, would that be with provinces? Would that be like if the United States decided that it is federally legal here, but then say Tennessee decided they didn't want it to be legal there, so therefore they can make it illegal still in Tennessee, but federally it'd be legal in the same way that like it's legal in Oregon, but certain counties are able to like remember the Ontario or Baker County or
something like
something
yeah,
like that over there in Eastern Oregon decided that they were going to be a completely the equivalent of a dry town.
right. Yeah, I'm not sure how that works on a federal level, but yeah, it's kind of the same thing. But I don't know if we could do that here because I don't think I've heard of an instance like that. That would be like, on a federal level, alcohol is okay, and it would be like Washington saying, "Nope, we don't want alcohol here." I'm not sure they could do that, but yeah,
I mean, they would have to allow them to use it,
hmm
but they could do the whole no sales.
yeah.
That's how they would get around it
I think they could restrict
because
it, but I
that's what
don't.
they do with that county right now. The people that live in that county can still use marijuana.
They just
They
can't
have
sell it there.
yeah, they
Yeah.
just can't sell it there. So they can't buy it there or
Okay,
sell
I
it
see
there.
what you're saying.
So they have to go somewhere else and bring it there. But legally they can smoke it there or dab it or whatever they want to do with it, eat it. They just can't do the business transaction in that county.
Right.
So that's why I'm thinking it would be it they could do it. I mean, hopefully there wouldn't be states that would be ridiculous like that, but I'm just saying that's how
Yeah.
they could do it. Um, but anyway, so currently the article is saying that 32 states have legalized marijuana in some capacity, with 10 of them, including Oregon being one, allowing adults to use it, I guess, recreationally.
hmm
It is saying that 2 out of 3 American adults now want to see it legalized, which
Yeah.
is awesome because that would be like 66%, which I guess it was only 25% in 95.
Yeah.
So it's definitely gaining support, which is awesome. So if you remember last Monday,
Yeah.
I talked about an article that Oregon was basically drowning in weed.
hmm
There's too much of it. They're being ordered to get rid of it. Well, they don't want to just get rid of it because, the growers are being ordered to get rid of it and they don't want to do that because it's like that's a lot of money down the drain. So they're ending up secretly selling it on the black market.
hmm
And that's a problem. That then brings in crime and all of
Right.
this other stuff that we don't want to have here. So this article kind of follows up on that, even though they aren't related in any way, by talking about this bill that would allow Oregon to export our oversupply of marijuana to other states um, where it's legal.
hmm
So obviously, we wouldn't be able to do it. We wouldn't be able to sell it to states where it's not legal. But that would really help keep the pot out of the black market. And also, it was saying somewhere in there, the oversupply has brought prices way down, which is great for us, but bad for the growers
In the
and the
dispensaries.
dispensaries. So it would keep the marijuana out of the black market and also regulate the legal cannabis sales prices. Does
Hmm.
that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Basically, it would be bringing things into balance because, our growers are putting out way more than what we can take in. Believe me, they haven't challenged me yet, but, as a community as a whole here in Oregon, we're obviously not smoking enough weed, which is a huge problem. But allowing us to export it out is going to normalize the prices. And once we are able to do this on a countrywide level, I think that you're going to see uh, more standardization as far as pricing and whatnot. Pricing, packaging, and probably even potency. Because now we're going to have a bunch of growers potentially working together over multiple states and stuff like that to come out with better and better products.
hmm
So there is definitely an upside to that.
yeah.
And especially Oregon being the one to kind of champion, these things that in their first steps. I like the idea of this state going, okay, well, let's be the first. And once we do it and show it works, everybody else can do it. But the
Right.
really cool thing about us being the first ones, we're going to be, and whoever other state is with us, is going to benefit. Like, it's going to be interesting to watch. And hopefully that translates as far as um, funding wise. I hope to see the increased revenue go towards important things: roads, schools, um, services for the poor. I mean, right now we have got an exploding. In our area, we've seen an explosion of homeless people.
hmm
We're having new ordinances being brought about to get rid of homeless people. Why are we doing that? I mean, they're getting kicked out of the only places they have to sleep, and yeah, it's a burden, but let's do something about it. Let's take this, you know, uh, brand new, fresh form of revenue, and let's build some places to let them sleep, some services to help them, get back out there,
Yeah.
get some, mental health for these folks. A lot of them suffer from severe mental issues. You know, we've got a lot of resources coming into the state from cannabis. There's a lot of good we can do with it. And now that, as you pointed out, Oregon's wanting to open up the gates, let's do it. You know, good article.
Thanks. I thought so too. So, kind of going along with this article, also in the Motley Fool,
Mm-hmm.
is an article entitled "This 2020 Presidential Contender is a Big Marijuana Supporter." The very first Democrat to announce a likely presidential run in 2020 happens to strongly support state level cannabis rights.
Awesome.
So, who is that person? Elizabeth Warren. And she is a Democratic senator in Massachusetts. So she just recently announced that she will be running for president in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And um, apparently, she used to be very against marijuana. She didn't want it legalized at any level. And then her constituents kind of changed her thinking in that.
Mm-hmm.
So she's still not 100% on board for federal legalization, but she's open to it. She's
Right.
she's she's at least open-minded enough that she probably could be. I don't want to say convinced. That sounds like we're trying to sway her into something that isn't the right thing to do, but
Right.
legalizing cannabis is the right thing to do. And so I think that the consensus seems to be that Elizabeth Warren is open-minded enough to consider making it federally legal at
Right.
some point.
Right.
So, so that's really encouraging.
Hmm. Well, I've recently been to Massachusetts, and from what little time I was there, a week, um, I got the general idea that this wasn't a really horribly conservative place. I mean, they keep electing Senator Warren, which she's a um, definitely a liberal. I'm not sure why she would be having pause about it to begin with. That those things kind of worry me when a liberal's like, it it raises some questions. We
Really?
already have more than enough proof that cannabis is perfectly fine. Unless you've got somebody spiking it, chances are you're not going to get hurt by it. So then why would a U.S. senator, who oftentimes chastises folks in office for not knowing what they're supposed to know, doesn't feel that marijuana on a federal level should be done? Did they go into that at all? Like why she had reservations?
The question was, why would she not support it on a federal level, and why was she initially opposed to it?
Right.
Okay. I it didn't go into that that I saw,
Mm-hmm.
but it just said that she had not always supported it, and she had expressed uncertainties about cannabis. It doesn't go into any. We'd have to look that up to find out in more detail why she didn't support it and what her uncertainties were. But at least she's kind of, changing her tune.
Yeah, that's something I might want to follow up on because I don't know. That's kind of peculiar to me. And I mean, it's on the surface, it's awesome that she's supporting it now. I mean, obviously, her state legalized it, not in time for me to enjoy it while I was there, but whatever. Um, but if her state's for it and they're for her, why wasn't she for it initially?
You
That's that.
know, I
So yeah.
that's not that hard for me to understand because I was completely against it.
Hmm.
I was trying to talk people out of it, debating with people, why would you want to make this legal? And I completely changed my tune, so why is it so hard to believe that she didn't also then do some research and, change her mind, not just because, she's saying it, but honestly change her mind based on whatever evidence was presented to her,
Right.
just like I did. Is
Well, I
that
can
that hard to
understand.
believe?
Now they keep talking about this in past tense, um, which obviously is good. Like she had concerns about it, but my thing is, yeah, if she had concerns about it, like early on in her career, like if we're talking about 80s, 90s kind of thing, when dare and just say no was still a thing. Um, okay, but we're talking about a U.S. senator that has tons of resources at her disposal as far as in research capabilities, access to high level scientific folks and organizations that we don't have access to. She should have been on board with this many, many, many moons ago. I'm once again, I know I'm playing kind of the tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist right now, but it seems that those who all of a sudden are popping up that have been in office forever, oh yeah, marijuana's cool, when they've always voted against it. It's like, okay, Who are we taking money from now?
I see what you mean, and that's a legitimate concern. Um, I just look at it more like, I guess, from my perspective, because of my own experience,
Hmm.
that if, because I know how against it I was and I know how for it I am now.
Right.
And she changed her mind 2 years before I did. I
Yeah.
didn't decide that I was wrong about cannabis until 2018. She figured it out in 2016. So
Eh. If she figured it out in 2016, to me, that's a little too late because we've been having medical marijuana for quite some time now
here in Oregon,
here in
yeah.
Oregon. But once again, U.S. Senator, you know, if she was in office and she wanted to know what's up with this marijuana thing, and she asked somebody who wore a white coat, she would probably have gotten enough data then to understand that marijuana is okay. But
Hmm.
if she waited until 2016, it's like, okay, well, where you been hiding all this scientific information that you didn't have access to until just now?
Maybe it just wasn't a concern. Like it just, she never researched it at that time because it didn't, like, weren't any bills being introduced in her state that had anything to do with it. So she then had no reason to look into it further because it was a non-issue. It's not legal federally, and it wasn't on the table to become legal in her state. So she had bigger things to focus on.
I understand that, but when it says that she was opposed to it, if it wasn't a thing, then it's like one of those things that if it's not a thing, don't comment on it.
Well, actually, I could be just misspeaking because it doesn't actually say she was opposed. It
Hmm.
said she's not always been a big supporter, and she failed to support her own state's recreational pot initiative. Hasn't supported recreational legalization nationwide and has expressed uncertainties about it. So it doesn't necessarily say that she's opposed.
Well, yeah, I mean, it doesn't say that. I wasn't. Maybe I was. I don't know. Anyway, my thing is you just kind of made my point for me by listing off those things that she has always been on the opposing side of it, either actively or passively. So all of a sudden she's like, "Hey, I want to run for president. I like pot." I don't know. It seems a little disingenuous.
Hmm.
I mean, if she wants to legalize pot, great. Let's work on that now. Let's say, yeah, you want to become president? Cool. Let's start seeing stuff now. Make it legalized now. Don't hold this as a carrot over our head, saying, "Oh, if you want legal pot, elect me." I don't like that. It's like love me or you don't get what you want. But anyway, yeah, I found the approach disingenuous, and we don't need any more carrots. Let's rip the band-aid off. Let's just legalize it. What we've got right now is a modern prohibition, and the last one didn't work well. This one hasn't worked well. It's time to just end the prohibition on something that is so totally safe. It's ridiculous that it was listed that way the first time. You know. So yeah, I'm not gonna react well to presidential candidates who come out saying, "I like weed, and if you elect me, you can get weed." It's just to what's logically supposed to be done now. We're on the precipice of it. Do you have anything?
Not really anything else about that. I was just thinking about this part that was talking about, for the 2020 presidential run. She's obviously not going to be the only Democrat that runs, but she'll probably be one of what give you, it says more than a dozen
Hmm.
contenders. So I'm trying to understand better, and I could just look it up, but I'm going to ask you because you're here, and why not? Um, do they have to narrow it down to one, like the DNC?
Hmm.
Can they only present, like, did they only present Hillary instead of Bernie and Hillary?
They're going to present one as their champion and only one.
Okay, so then Elizabeth and these other more than a dozen other contenders
Hmm.
will all compete, and then the DNC will decide who's going to be the
Well,
Democratic nominee.
this is where the system gets broken down a little. What happens is in each state there is a super constituent, and that super constituent is supposed to vote based upon their community or their state's overall feeling about who they want. And this is where it gets slippery, and this is what happened in the last cycle. Everybody, this is one of them that I saw. I'm not going to try to conjure up all the rest of them, but during the announcement, everybody had Bernie signs and stuff like that, and the super constituent went up and announced her candidate as Hillary. And like the entire room just went nuts and was like, "No, Bernie, blah blah." And she was like, "Nope, I'm the super constituent. I decide."
Wow.
So that's how that works, unfortunately.
Hmm.
Which is another great reason to get rid of the Electoral College.
I heard on, I think it was MSNBC or
Mm-hmm.
something, that they were talking about getting rid of that,
Mm-hmm.
of the electoral college.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the
So,
Electoral College maybe benefited back in the old days, but we really need to go by a popular vote. And this isn't just for Democrats. This is going to be fair across the board. If we get rid of the Electoral College, then it's pure popular vote. That means everybody's vote matters at that point.
mhm,
Every single U.S. citizen, their vote counts.
mhm.
Electoral College, it's not so much. It's just I don't know, it's a bad system. We need popular vote.
I don't really understand why we don't already have that, because I understand that we have the electoral college so that every state is represented fairly, so that, little tiny states don't get overrun by huge states.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're just doing it by individual citizens' votes, the states wouldn't need to be involved anyway. States would be represented by whoever lives in them, and who cares about that?
Exactly.
Like, does anyone ever remember afterwards, or, in any significant way, does it affect anything that Oregon votes blue instead of red? Like,
Yeah.
you know, really, what difference does that make?
No.
Trump still became president,
Yeah. Even though he
regardless of
lost
the
the
fact that
popular vote.
Oregon voted for Hillary,
Yeah.
or voted blue, or
Well,
whatever,
same
however
thing
you want to
happened
say it.
with um, Al Gore. He should have been our president, but
I sure
Bush
didn't
was.
think so at the time.
What's that?
I sure didn't think so at
Oh
the
no, neither did
time.
I. I was a conservative at the time,
Yeah.
but popular vote. But anyway, I am glad to see some fresh faces in there, and that's actually kind of what I want to segue to as far as presidential candidates are concerned.
Well, I wanted to say,
Oh,
or ask you one other thing
sure.
about that. So, when it gets narrowed down on the Republican Party side, the RNC, do you think that they will take the chance of letting Trump be their candidate
Oh,
for
hell no.
2020? Or do you think that they will just say, no way, we don't have a chance of winning on a Republican if he's the one that we choose. So therefore, because like, are there really, he only has like what, a 30%
Approval rating,
popularity rating or something like that right
something like
now?
that.
So, if say, theoretically, the country is split in two and half are Republican and half are Democrat. Okay, we know that's not how it is, but let's just pretend that it was that simple, um, for math reasons.
Right.
So,
Watch out, guys. Stoner math coming at you.
yeah, I've smoked too much to be able to have this conversation. So you've got 50% red, 50% blue.
Hmm.
And then you pretty much already know that you've lost 50% of the vote,
Hmm.
right? So now you've got,
25%.
no, so here you got 100%,
Oh,
right?
okay. I thought we were talking
So,
about
so like
just the
you, Jimmy,
constituents.
okay, you, Jimmy,
Yes, me.
you're gonna go run for president.
I hope not, but okay.
Not really. But let's pretend you're going to go run for president. You already know you're going to run as a Democrat, and therefore 50% of the country is probably not going to vote for you.
Right.
Okay, if we're doing just easy math.
Right. Stoner
Okay,
math.
so now you've got the other 50%. But then say that you're Trump, you don't have the Democratic vote, so
Mhm.
that's your 50% is gone. So he's only got 50% left that are the red, but he's only got a 30% approval rating over the entire country. Therefore, Republicans aren't that much in approval of him either. So
Mm-mm.
he's probably, even if we just say 30% of that, like, will they take a chance on even letting him have that ability to run for a second term, or will they say, no, those percentages are too low?
Well,
We're
what's probably
gonna
going to happen?
have, I don't even know who any of the other Republican people are, but Jeb
Nobody
Bush,
cares.
let's just pretend,
Oh, yeah.
we're gonna put him in chart. He's the only Republican name I can come up with right now
Right.
for some reason. But anyway, we're gonna nominate him because he has a better chance than Trump does.
And he's not a complete moron.
Do you think that that's possible? Or because like I've never seen that happen.
Well, what?
I've always seen them, but I'm not that old, so I'm sure it's happened. But in my lifetime, I don't remember ever seeing,
Somebody abandoned.
yeah, for their second term. Like it seems like they've always been
Mhm.
the RNC or DNC candidate for the next 4 years.
Yeah. What I think is going to happen is they're going to slowly creep away from Trump because Trump's going to campaign for a second term, but people are going to see that he has basically failed everything that he set out to do. So while his popularity dwindles as the campaign goes on, he's just going to get kind of pushed aside in favor of the other ones. So I think
so
that,
strange to see. Like,
yeah,
for the
it's going to
first
be
time
really
for
weird.
me.
This whole presidency, if you can call it that, has been weird to see. And it's not going to be a noticeable departure until people start realizing that, some, high-ranking Republicans are no longer, worshiping at the altar of Trump. Now they're doing other things, they're campaigning for other people and blah, blah, blah. It's going to be like, whoa, where did Trump's base go? And Trump's base went elsewhere. And I can entertain the thought. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but I'm hoping a lot of Republicans come over to our side that are just fed up with the rhetoric and the hate and stuff like that and be like, this is not what I signed up for. I found myself joining these things and didn't like it, and now I want to be one of you guys because I'm just tired of hating everybody. Because if one thing that we've witnessed over this last 2 years is, wow, there is a lot of upset Republicans out there, and they're not upset for the right reasons. I think other Republicans are seeing that and are starting to dislike what they're seeing, because
Yeah.
this has been bad. I don't remember. I mean, I've been on this planet for 42 years, and I don't remember anything like this ever happening. I've asked people, people that I've worked with and whatnot, it's like, have you ever seen? And they're like, before I can even finish, nope. I mean, the worst that they had was Nixon, and Nixon's not looking that bad anymore. And I'm not the only one that has that opinion. I mean, it's almost a consensus. People are like, yeah, Nixon, not that bad. He's cool. This guy.
I don't know. I have mixed family who are nearly all Republican, but they're split as far as supporting or not supporting Trump.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and they are very vocal, both sides,
Really?
about it. Yeah. So obviously, I have a much easier time relating to my Republican relatives that see Trump for what he is
Yeah.
versus the ones that are still blinded by his charms. Makes me want to vomit to even say Trump and charms in the same sentence, but they are.
It's like saying a dumpster fire. It's like, that's good stuff.
But I don't understand the blind following. I don't remember where I was going, but anyway, I don't understand the blind following for him. And if I I don't even know what to hope for at this point, because you don't want to hope the dude fails, because then the country fails. But I also want someone in the country to take over that's not going to keep running us into the ground.
Right.
So it's hard not to want him to fail.
It's interesting with your family that there is two sides, and it does show that there are intelligent Republicans out there that may not be in it for the religious conservatism per se, but might be in it for the fiscal conservatism, that they see the financial aspects of the country and be like, okay, well, the Democrats spend too much, Republicans, but unfortunately, even that ideology is incorrect. The Republicans usually end up throwing us deeper into debt. Anyway, I'm sorry, that segue.
Tangent, you mean?
It's interesting that even in your own family that there is a cross-section of fanatical Trump support and people that are like more on the rational side. And I just, being able to look at that must be really interesting. I actually kind of
Yeah.
find that fascinating. It's just, anyway.
And it's surprising to see which ones are on which side.
Mm-hmm.
There's often times that somebody will post something and I'm just like, whoa, I had no idea they thought that, and then that like really opens up the gates of communication, because even though we're still on opposite sides per se, we have some common ground,
Mm-hmm.
and Trump is very much about dividing people.
Oh, yeah.
So when we can find common ground with the other party,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's like nothing bad can come from that.
Yeah.
Only good things. So
If you
why
can
he
find,
wants to keep dividing us?
yeah, if you can find something in common with somebody of the opposing side, I mean, this is life. You grab that, Why not? Being a human is about making connections. So if you can, especially in politics, that's basically, as a society, who we look to as, can they play nice together? Can we play nice together? And you can see, I mean, the more they're divided, the more we're divided. It goes back and forth.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question about your family, since I'm not friends with them on Facebook. This is a super extended family, so I'm not a jerk. Just a super extended family. Anyway, do you find that it's mostly the older generation that are supporting Trump, or is it the younger ones, or do you think it's a mix?
Oh, it's a mix.
Really?
hmm I have a cousin that is significantly younger than me
Hmm.
that is completely pro-Trump. And I have another cousin that is about my age that is completely against Trump. It's really a mixture. I most of the ones that are for him are probably are the older ones.
Hmm.
But like I said, there are some younger ones that are very for him, and then other younger ones and older ones that are very against him. So it's really been a mixture.
That's interesting.
Yeah, which I was surprised about. I would have thought that the older ones would have been pro-Trump and the younger ones would have all been against Trump. I was
Hmm.
very surprised by the ones that are for him when they are a younger age.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, it's not unheard of, but it doesn't sound like it's something that they have as a majority as far as Trump support, obviously. But yeah, it's just interesting to see that there is a wide demographic that he appeals to.
Yeah, and I guess the part that's confusing to me about why young people, I really don't understand why women
Yeah.
support him. I just don't. I don't care what your party affiliation
Well,
is.
let's take women out of the picture because obviously there is some severe Stockholm syndrome going on or something. So let's
I
let's
don't
just
know.
take them. Let's
Anyway,
let's just
if you take
talk about
away
the populace
gender,
as a
if
whole.
you just look at age,
Hmm.
young people, like the only reason I can understand supporting Trump at all is fiscally. And even that is questionable because look at how many of his companies have gone bankrupt. Not to mention the fact that he's not really a self-made man.
Mm-mm.
He had a
He's a
rich
daddy-made
daddy.
man.
So, he can't even really claim the things that he has claimed have been all him because he's got this great brain and he's got the best words, you know? But like I can see because of the successes that he has had with some of his businesses, I can see some of the older generations who have money, even if it's not a lot of money, even if it's middle class, they have retirements to protect and stuff like that, and they own their homes. That demographic, I can see supporting him fiscally.
Hmm.
Young people, I don't get it. Most young people, especially, the ones that I know that are supporting him, don't have a lot of money. Don't
Right.
There's no reason for them to fiscally be like putting that much faith in him.
Hmm.
And the fact that they are younger and they have grown up in a completely different generation where racism is not okay, bullying is not okay, sexism is not okay, consent is incredibly important. All of these things that our generation and the younger generations have been taught, which are all, the correct ways that have
Hmm.
been corrected from the previous generations that didn't know better, or supposedly.
Well, what I think,
Those ones I don't understand. I don't understand how they can look past all of the negative things that he does that are disgusting just to say, oh, well, fiscally, I support that.
well, I think what we're kind of missing here is some cultural issues that a lot of people in the younger generation won't get, but I think it's what's affecting, at least on maybe a small scale, the older generation's appeal for Trump. You have to remember back in the 80s, the Reagan era, Trump was almost kind of a superhero. I mean, people saw Trump as the ideal businessman,
Right, right.
and he was wildly popular back then because everybody wanted to be this big Wall Street, businessman. And guess who was at the top of their game then? It was Trump.
Yeah, and that's why I can understand why the generations that are older than us, well, I mean, I guess you're still considered Generation X, right?
Sort
So,
of.
but you're at the very tail end of it. And so I guess I don't know when Generation X started,
Mm.
but probably that first half of that generation and then everybody older than that. I could see that looking at the him his heyday in the 80s and saying, like my aunts that would have seen that at that time when they were at that impressionable age,
Hmm.
them supporting him because of that, just like you exactly said. But the younger people didn't see that.
Right. Well, once again, I think what's missing there is yet more cultural, because I'm thinking that a lot of these people that are having these kids that are supporting Trump, I think it's not coming from, okay, you and I are obviously liberal, and then our kids are going off and being racist and conservative. It's a generational thing, because this
Why
is
would our kids ever go off and be racist and
that's what
conservative?
I'm talking about. I'm saying that this is a generational thing. These kids are not necessarily going out and acting like this as an opposition to their family necessarily. I'm saying that, mom and dad were probably Republican, racist, and Trump lovers, so, little Johnny and Susie are too. So, I mean, you've got cases where,
Oh,
you've
so
got,
I see what you're saying.
in a lot of ways, it works like religion. Um, a person's a Christian because mom and dad were Christian. A person's Muslim because mom and dad were Muslim. And then you do have the rare occasion where, Christian mom and dad has a kid that decides that they want to practice Judaism or Buddhism, you know. So it's rare that that happens. So mostly it's a generational thing. They're Republican because mom and dad were Republican. So when we're seeing the younger appeal, I think that we're actually seeing what we would normally see in any other time
Just
period.
familial lines.
Exactly. My expectation, though, which is why I have a hard time understanding the younger generations like yourself, is we live in an information age. Back when I was growing up, when I was young, it was hard because, I mean, you didn't have access to information as readily as we do. So you have to get a lot of your information from mom and dad. Yeah, we had newspapers, yeah, we had TV and stuff like that, but if you live in a conservative community that has its own TV station or whatnot, those are the messages that you're going to receive until you have the ability to go and seek out your own information. And a lot of times that just doesn't happen. I mean, people who are curious will go out and seek out information. People who don't deem the subject worthy enough to go out and research, they're not. And this is how you have, lifetime and multi-generational Republicans. Maybe they don't care, maybe they don't feel like researching it, or maybe it's just, this is how things ought to be.
Mm, yeah.
And, a lot of these, you know, salt of the earth folk have an idea of how things ought to be. They pass that down generationally. As far as like the rest of the things that we discussed today, it's nice to see changing attitudes and government right now as far as the cannabis industry. It's really great to see also that Oregon is being the maverick state that I knew that we could be in, going after the exports. So those
Yeah.
were really great articles.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, I think that's about all the time that we have for today.
Hmm.
This has been a lot longer than I thought it would be. So I think we should stop right here and we'll continue our conversation. We'll continue recording, and you guys will have to tune in for our next episode to hear the rest of this conversation. So I think it's been really interesting so far, and hopefully you guys all want to hear the conclusion of it.
Well, I
So,
do, and
yeah.
I was even here.
Um,
So if you have anything that you guys would like us to talk about in the future, please leave some information in the comments there. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, click on the bell to make sure you know when we're doing something new.
yeah, let us know in the comments. Even if you disagree with us, let us know, and if you agree with us, let us know that too. We read every comment. So, make your voice be heard too. So thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for tuning in. And I've been Jenna.
And I've been Jimmy. As always, be kind and peace.
Bye.